Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you how to build serverless application using Cloudflare Pages. Over the next couple of minutes, I'll walk you through what serverless is and also explain what edge functions is in case you're not familiar with it. Then we'll take a look at Cloudflare's network and also see the offerings that Cloudflare developer ecosystem offers you, such as Cloudflare Workers, Cloudflare Pages, which is what we're going to be talking about in this video, and some of our data storage options, specifically KV storage. Next, we'll look at a quick demo running through how to actually deploy your serverless application on the edge with Cloudflare Pages. So let's get started. Serverless. What is serverless? I'm sure most of us already know that this still involves servers, right? The only difference here is that you don't have to manage it yourself, right? There are several different cloud providers out there that provide you with storage options for you to host your server while they help you with provisioning and managing the infrastructure. You only need to focus on writing code, right? But what about the edge? Like, what is edge functions or edge computing if you want to go with any of these concepts? I would explain it using this map you see right here on the screen. This is the current map of Cloudflare's global edge network. Now, each of the dots icons you see on the map indicates a CDN or a Cloudflare edge network located in a specific location. Now, what is edge network? Just so you understand it, edge is basically server that is located geographically closest to the user, right? So going back to the diagram that I showed here, each of these is a edge server that helps you serve your application closest to your user. So if you have a user, for example, trying to use your application, say for example, from the Netherlands, right? The app is going to get served from the closest server to them compared to if you had like hosted, if you have your application hosted on serverless, which is just strictly hosted in a specific defined location, for example, US East or EU West, right? I like to also think about serverless as the same thing as the edge, right? So serverless is the same thing as the edge. The only difference is that with the edge, you have distributed network where your application is being served from. Now let's take a look at Cloudflare's global network. Cloudflare operates on a massive scale, right? Today we have over 275 plus points of presence located across 100 countries around the world. We have over 25 million internet properties. Like, this is the map from 2020. So it's not currently updated with all the current stats that we currently have. But this goes to show you that Cloudflare's network is operating at a massive scale and we continue to grow year over year. Speaking about developers and how Cloudflare offers developers a platform for them to build serverless application, Cloudflare developer platform is also expanding and growing every day. We currently have several different offerings for developers. One of them is Compute. So Compute is our serverless offerings for developers looking to build the application on Cloudflare's edge network. We have something called Cloudflare Workers, which essentially is you writing JavaScript functions and deploying that to the edge, right? We also have several different data storage options for you to work with. So if you're deploying your serverless application to the edge, you also have data that you would definitely like to manage, right? And the essence of the edge is everything, including the application, the database, should be as much as possible close to the user, reducing latency for them, right? So we also have Workers KV, which is a key value storage for saving data or caching it on the edge, and durable objects R2, even recently D1 is some of the storage options that we currently provide at Cloudflare. And finally, a developer services that we offer, we have Cloudflare Pages as one of them, which is what this talk is going to be, what this video is focused on, which is what this video is focused on. We have Cloudflare Stream, which is our media upload service for videos and live streaming. We have Cloudflare images, image resizing, and all of that. This is massive, massive improvements from where we were a couple of years back. We keep building and improving on our platforms and adding new tooling to help developers build on the edge. Now, let's talk briefly about Cloudflare Workers. I mentioned Cloudflare Workers is a way for you to write JavaScript code and deploy that to the edge. But it's not just JavaScript. Cloudflare Worker also allows you to write with other languages like C++, Rust, C, and so on. And that gets compiled into WebAssembly. The great thing with Cloudflare Workers is how you can also intercept the response and the request from the server. You can add database object storage to your functions. You can also connect other Cloudflare data services and third-party microservices to your application. So the things that you can go on to build with Cloudflare Workers are endless because of all of these integrations available to you. This is an example worker, right? I'm just showing here the syntax of what a worker would look like. A worker in this case is a JavaScript file containing your code that you like to deploy to the edge, right? So here I have an example response that would display hello worker on the browser. If I run this, for every syntax or every worker you create, you need to export a default function and call fetch if you're trying to send a response or get a request to the server. Cloudflare Pages is our platform that allows you to deploy your application, full stack application on Cloudflare Global Edge Network, right? Cloudflare Pages is amazing because it offers you some integrations, like allows you to deploy from Git. So if you have an example repository you like to deploy on Cloudflare Pages, all you need to do is have a GitHub repo, publish your code there, and for every Git commit that you make to your repo, Cloudflare Pages will trigger a build and give you like a new version of your website. That's if you deploy a static website to Cloudflare Pages. So it has amazing Git integration with GitHub, GitLab, right? It also offers you automatic CI/CD support, right? You can set up testing pipelines if you want to. You can add your own build command when you're deploying your application. Also, for every commit and PRs that you make, you get an automatic preview link. This is really great for working with teams, managers, marketers, because for every commit or every change you make, before that gets pushed to production, you have a preview link you can share within the team so that they see the changes before it goes live to production. Amazing unlimited staging environment for you to integrate into your platform. You can have a production environment, you can have a test environment, and all of that. I love Cloudflare Pages because of its ease to integrate with other Cloudflare products like Access, Web Analytics, and you get free SSL for all the applications that you deploy using Pages. Finally, which is one of the things I like to touch on in this video, is the ability to add dynamic content using Cloudflare Workers. And with that, I introduce you to functions. So Pages functions is a way for you to add dynamic data or content or functionality to your Cloudflare Pages application. Remember the example I showed you of a example worker using Cloudflare Workers. This is the same example, but with Pages functions. So think about Pages functions as an abstracted way of building workers, right? So you have a typical application, or in this case, a front-end application like Vue or a React application that you would like to deploy to Cloudflare Pages. And let's say, for example, you're trying to add functionalities to that application, but you don't want to spin up an entire backend. Like you don't want to have to manage a separate project or have to write like a separate Cloudflare Workers functions for that. With Pages, you can have everything inside the same project, right? So this is an example Pages function worker doing the same thing. But the great thing here is the difference that you could clearly see here is that the syntax with Pages function is a little bit different. Here you have an export async function with an on request, and in there we're passing in context. And inside context, you have also some of the properties that already exist in workers, but some that you get out of the box with functions is the params and the data properties. Why functions, right? Functions allows you to easily create dynamic functionality inside your Cloudflare Pages application. It allows you store data, connect to third-party services, perform authentication if you want to. And the quickest way to use it is by creating a functions directory inside of your application. So a typical Vue, Next, React application that you deploy to Pages would, in order for you to add dynamic functionality to that project, you need to create a functions directory. One extra bit that I really like is that there is also something called plugins, right? So plugins is a way for you to add additional functionality to your Pages application without the need for you to write it all from scratch, right? With functions, you get different request handlers for you to use. Typically, you can use the on request handler when you want to, but when you know that you have specific methods that you like to build for your APIs, you can use on request post if you're trying to send a post request, put if you're trying to send a put request, get, and so on. So making use of the specific request handlers that you're trying to use with your function is really handy. I spoke a bit about Pages plugin, but let's talk about that in a little bit more detail. So Pages plugins is a library that developers can use to augment their existing Pages project with a deep integrations to functions. I think about Pages plugins as a way to abstract some of the functions that you've built that you find that you can easily reuse in other projects or even in the same project, right? So Pages functions can easily be a utility file that you've built and you want to make that a package, right? So you deploy it as, or you make a plugins for that. Currently, there are different use cases for Pages plugins. We currently have a plugin that allows you to intercept HTML pages and inject a third-party script, like, for example, Google Tag Manager. You can use Pages plugins to validate authorization headers. You can use it to store data in KV or durable objects. You can also use it for server-side use and plug in data from a CMS. And finally, you can use it to track performance or analytics or report errors. Cloudflare maintains a wide range of Pages plugins that you can use today if you're interested. We have one for Cloudflare Access, Google Chat, Sentry, and so much more. And we always look out for people in the community that are looking to build their own plugins. So if you currently are working with functions and you find that you want to create a plugin but you're not sure how to, or you already created one and you would like to submit it, you should definitely check out this page on the documentation that outlines how to create plugins and how to submit plugins if you've built one. Let's talk about data. Now we've explored a bit what serverless is, functions on the edge with Cloudflare and workers and Pages functions. Now, if you're building an application and you want that to be dynamic, potentially those applications will have to deal with data. And in the case of building on the edge, right, you want your data to also be close to your users, right? So that's where Cloudflare comes in. We currently have several different offerings for you depending on your use case. These are some of the data um, services we provide you. I'm going to focus on KV for this talk. So KV is a global low latency key value storage that you can use. The great thing here is that it supports exceptionally high read volumes with low latency, making it possible for you to build dynamic APIs and website that responds quickly as if it was a cached static file, right? And now, seeing how I've explained Pages functions to you and KV, I would like to show you how to actually use it in a whole application and deploy it to Pages. So let's take a look into that. So I'm going to show you two different examples. The first one is going to do something using location-based redirects. right? In Pages functions, you will need to create a functions directory, and in there you can add JavaScript or TypeScript based files to write your functions. And in this example here, I have a functions repo. Inside there, I also added an API just to make it similar to when you query an API endpoint, right? So the endpoint would always have API prefix to all of them. Now I have the countries redirect.js file, which I have opened right now, and it's exporting an async function on request with a context parameter. Now, on request here is generic, right? I can use specific request handlers like on request get or on request post if I want to. So the first thing I will do here is extract request from the context object. And then after that, for this example, I want to redirect based off of the function's location, so the user's country. And I'll be using the request object for this. So inside the request object, I can get the specific country's location using the cf.country object. And now I'm checking if the request is coming from the Netherlands, which I'm currently located in, then it should actually redirect the user to Cloudflare's Netherlands website. Right now, after that, I want to return a new response, hello workers, to the console or to the page. So let's try this and see what happens. Here I'm already running my server, but I'll stop it and start it again. So the script I'm using is npm run API, but actually what this is the npx Wrangler pages dev command with this. Now once I have this running, I can go to the endpoint /API/country redirect. Now this should automatically do the redirects that I mentioned, right? Because what happens here is it hits the endpoints and it sees that, oh, the specific user's country is the Netherlands, then it automatically does the redirects, right? This second example is quite similar, but instead I'm going to be using KV, which is the key value storage for workers or pages functions. Now, what I'll do here is I would extract the request and the environment object from context, right? I'm using env here because I'm going to be working with KV, and I'll share more on that later. But after this, I also want to create a new URL. So this new URL will be the request or URL object that comes from the request when I send it. Now, the example that I want to make here is similar to the previous one, redirects, but I want to use data stored in KV for it. So I want it to be possible for me to go to an endpoint, and based off of the parameters added to the endpoint, it should redirect to a URL that I currently have saved on KV, right? So I'm checking here that if the URL path name is actually the name of the function, right? So it only applies to this function when I run it. I create a redirect object here, and this is a key value object that I'm going to be pushing to KV. I'm going to use the env.kv namespace.put command to push this to a KV storage. Now, what I've done here is I created a promise that searches the key of the object that I have, and based off of that, puts or adds the data or pushes it to KV storage, right? If I run this, what I get is in my Cloudflare dashboard where I have the KV redirect namespace here. If I view this data, you'd see that all the redirect object has been pushed to KV. Now, the great thing about this is I can run this once and the put command runs once and then adds the data to KV. Now, every time I have a request that calls one of the keys of this, it will automatically get you the value or redirect based on the value. So that's what we'll do next. So next, I'm going to create I'm going to create this lookup pattern that says that if the parameters attached to this endpoint is similar to any of the keys that I wrote to KV, it should automatically make a redirect, right? If that's not the case, then it should just return an example, hello workers, like so. So to test it out, I'll run npm run kv. Now this is another different command that I have, and it's essentially the same, but it's also appending the kv namespace to the command, right? Now if I run this, it's great, and I go to /API/kv redirect with the parameters of, for example, one of the keys we have is Twitter. So if I use this, it's going to redirect me to Cloudflare's Twitter. This is great as a use case if you're thinking of doing either redirects based off of data you already stored on KV, or you're trying to intercept a request and make sure that you have that data cached on KV so that the data is always correct, or the data always maps to what you have on KV to effect the redirect. Thank you so much for staying. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like to learn more about the things that I spoke about in this video, definitely check out our documentation. We have more details on how to work with Cloudflare Workers, pages functions, and also our Discord community is super lively and the best place to be. You would find questions to all the answers you have about Cloudflare Workers and all of that. So definitely also join us using the QR code on screen. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.